everybody? Welcome back to the Complete Game Podcast, episode 84. I'm your host, Curt Schilling. He's the co-host and my firstborn, Curt Schilling. What's up, new pop?
Not much. Second night out without a kid last night. We watched the Florida Panthers and the Predators. The Florida Panthers almost outscored the Carolina Panthers on Monday Night Football. They had 8 goals. It was nuts, but it was a good time. So looking forward to getting together with you guys this week for Thanksgiving.
Yep. A lot to be thankful for. Well, in the week since last episode, the winter meetings happened and moves started to get made. And we can start actually with the first trade, which was Anaheim and Baltimore swapping players. Taylor Ward, left fielder Taylor Ward goes from Anaheim to Baltimore. Former premier pitching prospect Grayson Rodriguez goes from Baltimore to Anaheim. I don't know how to read this. I mean, I think Anaheim gives up somebody they could give up and get somebody with, I'm going to use air quotes, enormous upside, whose health has been the number one concern already. He's a number one. He's got number one stuff, I should say, and a ceiling that's through the roof. But I don't know. It's the potential thing. You're trading a big league outfielder for potential.
And what are the Baltimore Orioles looking to get back from that in Taylor Ward with? Is that a replacement for Cedric Mullins or?
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, let me check real quick.
I think he only has a year left.
I think
versus
that one of the
4
things
years
they were
for
looking
Grayson.
at. Well, I think more importantly, they were looking for a right-handed power bat. Ward had 36 homers last year. Kind of a one-dimensional guy in that sense. But this is a move. Baltimore was just, this is an organization saying he's not going to become what we need him to become while he's playing for us. So, new surroundings, new scenario, new scene for Grayson. And this is a horribly lopsided trade if Grayson Rodriguez goes to Anaheim and is healthy and pitches to his potential because he's a number one. But I think the Orioles are pretty comfortable that that's just not in the cards. And got him, the Angels get him for basically one season of Taylor Ward. And then, one of the things off of that trade, it kind of makes them, now they potentially, Cody Bellinger becomes in play for them. I don't know, but I'm just not feeling Anaheim as a team that free agents are looking to. And obviously money changes potential landing spots and all that go with that. But, something that I don't know if we've talked about this in depth at all, but one of the things that it came into play for me a couple times, but it's much, much more prominent now, and that's taxes. Paying taxes in California. And just so you know, guys, people know, baseball players pay income tax on the home state that they play in for 81 games, and then they pay income tax on the road for the cities that they play in, the days that they play in. So your income tax is a nightmare to file, and we never filed it. But Anaheim, California, it's one of the reasons, the Ohtani deal was so big because and I go back to another hockey story. It was the reason I didn't think Tavares would go to Toronto. I thought Tavares would stay, because it was a monstrous. Toronto's taxation is just insane when you compare it to other places. And, that kind of surprised me, but that was apparently a boyhood dream of his. But anyway, so that we got Grayson Rodriguez to Anaheim, Taylor Ward to Baltimore for a team that needs to build a pitching staff. Baltimore didn't, I don't think, get any better with this deal.
Yeah, and I'm also on the side of not loving LA, what they look like, especially with how good Seattle looked last year. They just missed a trip to the World Series. And then also we can move into another trade. I think Texas got a little younger and maybe a little better. I don't know how you feel about Brandon Nimmo for Marcus Semien, but is that the Mets trying to get
here's the challenge, Garrett. We talk about this, and I never worry about contracts and spending money because it doesn't impact me, right? Owners can spend the money however they want, all the things that go with it. And remind me, G, to talk about the labor issue too. But this was, I think, the Rangers getting off a big contract in Semien, and the Mets moving Nimmo. I don't know that it changes the Mets. I think it goes back to the same thing we talked about earlier. I think the Mets needed to get a right-handed bat, and he provides that. The problem is, if you ask Met fans, and I agree with them in this, Marcus Semien's 35 years old. Now, he can still play and all the things that go with that, But on that apex of career arc, you're on the downside. You're on the backside. Not that he can't still. I mean, Alex Bregman, he can still be a phenomenal player, and he's an exceptional
he was
defender.
definitely a key player in that World Series run they had, and he is
yep.
a great player when he does play. But
he was
the last
an MVP
2 years
guy.
he struggled.
He was in the MVP conversation the year they won it.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
he was
in the MVP conversation when they won it. But he's an elite defender. So, and apparently the Mets are pretty deep with middle infield prospects. So I don't know what that means. But a player who wasn't factoring in Nimmo in the Mets plans, obviously. But all these teams we're talking about, these are marginal deals in the sense that I think all these teams involved that are potential playoff teams need pitching, as does every team. But so none of these really blow me away. These are just moves that get made for contract's sake and money's sake. And this guy's not. They both have enough history in those organizations that the organizations decided to move on. And certainly not a blockbuster, either of those deals. And then the last one, the most recent one, I don't think I'm surprised. So St. Louis sends Sonny Gray and $20 million in cash to Boston for Brandon Clark and Richard Fitz. And the Red Sox rotation is today better than it was yesterday. And you and I were talking before the show, and I'm kind of chuckling at the fact that the headlines I've read in a couple places were that the Red Sox deal for a durable starting pitcher, a guy who hasn't thrown 200 innings in 10 years. He's got Sonny was a big power arm, always has been kind of a power arm. His metrics inside of his innings pitch look good. He's certainly a inning plus or strikeout plus an inning guy, but something to be said for the fact that he went 14-8 on a bad team last year. But he's and he's 36, and in many ways it kind of reminds me of my deal in the sense that I went over there. I was 37 when they dealt for me, but the year before the numbers under the wire, under the hood numbers showed that I was still throwing at an elite level. He is the very same way. He's 36, and I don't think 36 today is the 36 of 50 years ago by any stretch.
No, not with the way guys treat themselves now, especially.
Yeah, but
like
with Giolito declining his option, you've got Crochet. Well, right now it's Crochet to Gray as their 2. I don't know that Sonny Gray's at 2 in the sense that not a guy you hand the ball to in the second game saying, all right, let's go get him. Awesome. I think I think that the Red Sox are going to be very deep into the Mackenzie Gore, Dylan Cease guys, one if not both. But Clark is lefty who touches 100. But here's the Red Sox limited him to 14 starts and 38 innings, which, come on, 60 punch outs in 38 innings, 27 walks. So he's the guy that we talk about weekly, the thrower, right? He's the guy. And, this is the kind of guy that if you can bring this guy in and settle him down and turn him into a pitcher, then my God, what a lopsided deal. Because Sonny Gray for 2 years and this kid's pitching, in St. Louis 10 years from now. And then Fitz is I think a 4-5, mid 90s 4-seam guy. But a deal that, I give the Red Sox the win in the deal because they did what I think their entire, in addition, I really do believe Bregman coming back is a big deal for them, but they need to get better if they want to get deep in. There are teams, and they won't admit this, and them, and there are same teams that are in hockey who they're building their roster for the playoffs. They're not building their roster for the regular season. They're going to make the postseason. They've got a good enough team, barring some freak injuries. They're going to be in the playoffs. They don't want the wild card series where you're playing 3 games away and you're playing before the other. They want to get in, but they're building these teams. And you saw what the Dodgers did. They went in with 4 arms, 4 guys, that 4 power arms, swing and miss guys, and they dominated. And until they got to Toronto, and they didn't dominate Toronto. But I think Boston is building towards, hey, yes, we're going to be in October and playing in October, meaningful games in October, but we need someone behind Garrett Crochet to win game 2 of a series or in game 5 or 6.
I think that in that same vein of thinking, the team that pencils themselves into the playoffs and kind of builds their roster for that time of year, the Mets, I think a lot of people had that mentality about last year. Do you think that, I think they're the easiest team to check a yes next to this box, next to this question for it, but none of these teams are done, right? This is early offseason stuff.
No, not even close.
Just wanted to make that clear.
Nope. Well, I did want to mention a couple other things. There's stuff coming out now about the WBC, and apparently Otani's going to play for Japan. And a couple teams that have come out, unnamed front office people, saying they don't want their pitchers to play. Let me be clear: if I was an organization, I would have something in contracts that did not allow my pitchers to play. I think that is an absolute recipe for disaster and a guaranteed way to get guys hurt.
But
I hate to say it like that because I love the idea of the WBC, but you could not put it in a worse place than spring training from a time.
And that's your ownership voice there. But if you were playing, how hard would it have been for you not to put on the red, white, and blue and play for Team USA?
No, it would have been possible. I would have played.
Yeah,
I would have.
That's
played.
What I mean. So
right,
you're very stern on your ownership mentality, but then again, I think about you growing up when I was 10, 12 years old, and I'm like, oh yeah, if they gave you any fucking chance to put on the pin, like the red, white, and blue USA jersey.
Yep. No, I would have in a heartbeat. And it's I did I went on the Japan tour after the 98 season, which ended up being the thing that I think ended up getting me hurt. It's just not as smart. It's just, your body can't do it. I think, honestly, they should do it at the All-Star break. They should take 2 weeks off, and they should do a Four Nations sort of thing or whatever. I think it'd be great for baseball. I think it would be great for, you'd have 2 extra weeks in the middle of the season to rest guys, to bring injured guys back. Your pitchers are all hot and ready and able to go, and all the things that go with that. But I wouldn't, oh my God, I'd be terrified if my pitchers were going into this thing because they're not ready. The WBC demands elite effort. You're not ready to do that in February. You're just not. Watch.
Yeah, I mean,
and
you're getting playoff adrenaline wearing your nation's colors.
Absolutely.
And you're not ready.
Even hotter, right? And you know what? We're gonna. I'll give you a little project over the next week or two. I think we should go back and look at the guys that have pitched in the WBC in the last couple times and see from what kind of years they had, because I know there's injuries all over that thing. And so that the only problem, a lot of managing stuff. Vitiello going to San Francisco from the University of Tennessee, never having managed a day in his life. A lot of news around that. Probably the most surprising, and not because I don't know Warren Schaefer, but he took over as interim manager after Black was fired in Colorado, and after the season that they just ended up having. He's been there for over a decade. Warren Schaefer they took the interim manager title off and gave him the job. And I'm not sure I understand that. I just think that they need to cut bait and get a clean, fresh start and redo everything. But maybe it's a great hire. Maybe they love him. Maybe they wanted some familiarity in the dugout with the players. I really feel like, and I've said that time and time again on this podcast, that the Rockies need a reset. And Paul DePotesta, I think, needs to reevaluate and relook at how they do everything with pitching in Colorado. On position players, I'm not as much into that, but they've got to redo how they evaluate, how they draft, and how they develop pitching, or it's going to be more of the same. And that sucks because that's a great city and good fans. So what else you got, bud?
I wanted to ask you, because I haven't told you this yet. Are there any questions that you miss being asked when you played, or questions you at least liked answering? I know it's kind of an odd question. There's a point.
I always liked the hardcore questions, like, how did you pitch this guy, or why was this guy so much trouble for you, or questions that got to a level of detail that I was into when I pitched.
That shows you're not just writing about it, or
right. Okay. Hey, how did it feel when you won the World Series? I mean,
yeah.
No, don't miss that one.
Are you excited for Disney World?
Right.
All right. The reason I ask is because Coach Clark and I are going to have Connor Hellebuck on Inside Edge. So a little preview teaser now for that. You guys will see that on next Saturday if you're listening to this now.
Hey, ask him a question for me. When in his head did he know that he belonged? Is he still fighting? I mean, at some point you figure it out, but I'm curious if he knew when he was 17 that he was special.
You mean like in the NHL?
Or when in his head did he lay down and go, I can do this and I'm as good as anybody here? Because that day comes for everybody.
All right, I'll ask him.
So, all right. Hey guys, subscribe. You guys will continue to grow. We'll grab them. We'll look at the questions from this last week and 2 weeks and see if we got stuff we want to answer. Otherwise, we will be back next week. Talk to you soon.
Thank you
Have a good
guys.
one,
Thank
G.
you guys
Happy
for the
Thanksgiving.
interactions, and we're up over 1,200 subs. So appreciate all the support, guys, and we'll talk to you next
Awesome.
week.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.